Hello class, in today's video we're going to be doing a revision for our financial maths post test. The first topic that I'm going to go through in this video is we're going to be converting between decimals, fractions and percentages, as this is a topic that I didn't really cover in a great detail at all when we started this unit. First thing I want to talk about is what are equivalent numbers. So the following numbers are said to be equivalent but expressed in three different ways. So 30%, 3 on 10 and 0.3 all represent the same data, so they represent the exact same thing but just expressed in three alternative ways. Now I just wanted to cover what this word means because you're going to be seeing this word on your post test. So when you see this word, it means, all right, if I've got 30% or 50%, what is this represented as a fraction form and as a decimal form, which still represent the exact same data set. I've also previously shown you this particular flowchart of here, which kind of shows you how you need to convert between fractions to a decimal or to a percentage. However, the question that you're going to have on your post test is only worth 1 mark, and because it's only worth 1 mark, you don't really need to use by hand calculations to arrive to your answer. Instead, what I'm going to be showing you in this video is I'm going to show you how to do this all on your scientific calculator, which is going to be a lot more simpler and easier for you guys. However, there are still some circumstances, or some conditions I mean, so you need to actually use like a relatively modern calculator. Because not all calculators have the required buttons or functionality that we need it to do. So I recommend you use a calculator shown on my right, but I know that some students don't have that at all. Now, some of the features that we need to use for this particular calculator is this button over here, but particularly if you look at the yellow sign up above, notice that that's the mixed fraction sign. So in order to use the mixed fraction, we need to press shift and then that button. We also needed to have the percentage. So in order to use the percentage sign, also again press shift and then the bracket. And we also need to have this button over here. So this button is generally not found in the older calculators, and we really need it in order to convert between a fraction to a decimal very easily. So you need to use this button over here. So you just need to press that. You don't need to press the shift at all. Press that button and then you will arrive to your answer. Now, if you don't actually have the calculator with you, then I recommend you download this file, but obviously at your own risk. Now, this particular file only works with Windows computers, and it actually has an emulator or a program that has the scientific calculator I have on the right-hand side, and it's really easy. So if you have an old calculator and don't have these functionalities, I highly recommend you download this, but if you're scared of catching viruses and whatnot, then don't bother at all. So I'm going to show you how we could actually use this, how we could actually use a calculator in order to arrive to our answers. The first question is relatively easy. So it says 45%. I want to show you in this video over here of how we could do this. So 45%, click shift and then the bracket, hit the enter button, and you will get this as 9/20 or 0.45. The next question, 24%. So you put this directly into the calculator, enter, you get 6 on 25, but if you press the other button, that gives you 0.24. Again, for 10.5, that if you put this into the calculator, you're going to get an answer of 21/200. Alternatively, that's equal to 0.105. Now, the next few examples are a bit more harder because you've got a mixed fraction. Now, what you need to do is press shift and the fraction sign, and then put all the values in, followed by the percentage sign. And if you do this, you should get an answer of 53 on 500, which is equivalent to 0.106. And for the last example, do the same thing, shift the fraction sign, and you get a mixed fraction, put the values in. And if you do so, you get an answer of 7 on 120 or 0.0583 recurring. All right, now let's move on to the sorry. Now, when you're adding in the mixed fraction into the calculator, there's a very common mistake that students might make, and I want you guys to avoid it. So if you guys try to express the mixed fraction without actually pressing the mixed fraction button on the calculator, you will arrive to the wrong answer. So this is the correct answer you should be getting. Now, I want to show you on the left-hand side how you would get the answer wrong if you didn't press the mixed fraction. So look over here. Now I'm just pressing the regular fraction button. I'm not using the mixed fraction button at all. And if I just manually put the 5 in front of it, and I'll arrive to the incorrect answer. So look at my calculations below, and notice that I've got 1 over 24 as opposed to getting 7 on 120. So just showing you, if you don't actually use the mixed fraction button, you will get an entirely different answer, which is going to be incorrect. So moving on to the next part over here, I would like you to actually answer these questions over here, which can be found on the Google Docs. Please try to answer these questions, and I will actually upload the answers for all the questions found on the Google Docs later during the lesson. The next part of today's lesson is we're going to be expressing quantities as a percentage. So in order to express a quantity as a percentage, there's 2 things you need to do. You need to first write this as a fraction, and then convert them to a percentage by multiplying this by 100. So the first questions, or the first example reads, write 11 grams of 20 grams as a percentage. So what you need to do is express this as a percentage over here. So 20 grams is the denominator, 11 grams is going to be the numerator. So it's going to be 11 on 20. So now I need to follow step 2 by multiplying this by 100. If I do this, I should get an answer of 55%. Pretty straightforward. Now, the common tricks to these types of questions is that they often give you quantities that have 2 different units. So notice over here, I've got express 40 cents as a percentage of $1.80. Now, cents and dollars are 2 different units of money. So what you need to do is you need to actually express 40 cents into dollars to ensure that the units are the same or consistent. So what we need to do is we need to convert this to dollars, which is 40 cents is the same thing as 0.40. And therefore do the same thing, express this as a fraction. So it will be 0.40 divided by 1.8, multiply this by 100, and therefore you're going to get an answer of 22.22%, round to 2 decimal places if applicable. So again, try to answer these questions over here on the Google Docs, and then I'll show you the answers later during the lesson. We're now going to be looking at discounts. So we talked about discounts being the amount of money that you save, or the reduction in value. And we also discussed that discounts can also be represented as a percentage. And the 2 formulas I have below allows you to calculate what is the sale price, the amount that you need to pay after the discount has been applied. When you're using this formula over here, I do want to emphasize that the percentage discount using this formula needs to be converted into a decimal before you could actually use the formula correctly. So let's look at an example. So Mr. Doe wants to buy a podcast microphone to make his YouTube videos fire. The cost of the podcast microphone is $200. One of his students can hook him up with a 30% discount. What is the price that Mr. Doe needs to pay with the 30% discount? So we're going to be using this formula over here because it's giving us the percentage discount. All you need to do is just substitute the values, but remember to convert this into a decimal. So 30% converted to a decimal is 0.30. Substitute the values in, so 200 multiplied by bracket 1, subtract 0.30. That will give you an answer of $140. Looking at the next example, this example over here is where you have multiple discounts being applied. So the marked price of Mr. Doe's t-shirts is $30. Mr. Doe is offering 10% discount on his YouTube merchandise, and then again offers another 20% discount on the discounted price. How much will you have to pay to rock this drip? So first of all, we need to find out what is the first discount. So in this case over here, we go 30 multiplied by 1 minus 0.10. So I've converted this into a decimal, which is 0.10. You're going to get an answer of $27. And then using this value here, find out what is 20% off that. So if you do this, then you should get an answer of $21.60. What I'd like you to do now is answer these 4 questions over here. They're quite repetitive, so you might skip a few of them if you like, but try to get as much practice as you can. I'll again have these solutions posted at the end of the lesson. All right, we're going to be looking at the third part of today's lesson, which is calculating the original price of an item before the actual discount has been applied. So the formula to actually calculate the original price is going to be the sale price, which I'll always give you, over 1, subtract the percentage discount. And again, make sure you're using this as a decimal form. Now, we're going to be looking at a few examples over here. So the first question is, Mr. Doe bought a 2-in-1 barbecue and a hot pot grill for $69 after a discount of 40% to satisfy his food cravings during this depressing quarantine period. What was the usual price of the grill? So this is the 2-in-1 barbecue and hot pot grill over here. So we're trying to find out what is the original price. So this is the formula over here. All you're doing is just substituting it into the formula. So sale price is 69 divided by 1 minus 0.4, because I've converted this into a decimal. And if you do this into your calculator, it's going to be $115. Please answer these questions over here to get as much practice as you can. Moving on to the next topic, which is about transposing simple interest. Now, this is a topic that I didn't really cover in a great amount of depth because I've just given you the formulas already, but I want to be showing you how do we actually get from the simple interest formula to the formula that allows you to calculate principal, the formula that allows you to calculate simple interest rate, and so forth. So the word transpose means to rearrange, and in order for you to correctly rearrange an equation, we must use the inverse operations, meaning the opposite operations, to solve for a particular variable of interest. So if you see an addition, we use subtraction, you see the multiplication, use division, so forth, as indicated by the table on the right-hand side. Now you've got two formulas over here to calculate simple interest, but I recommend using this formula over here. However, you are going to see this formula over here on your post test, so I don't want you to get too confused at all. The only differences between these two formulas is that you need to convert this into a decimal, whereas you just leave this as a percentage, the whole percentage, and use the formula as it is. What I'm about to show you right now is how we can get from this particular formula over here so that we could actually solve for P, solve for the interest rate, and solve for time. So notice for the first question, I want to find what principal is. So I want to get P by itself. How are we going to do that? Well, in order to do that, I need to get rid of R, I need to get rid of T, and I need to get rid of the 100. But since I've got an ugly fraction and I generally don't like to work with fractions, I'm going to get rid of 100 first. So notice that P is being divided by 100, and we need to use inverse operations. The opposite or the inverse of divide is going to be multiplication. So to get rid of 100, what I'll do is I'm going to multiply by 100 in both sides of the equation. I need to multiply on both sides because an equation is essentially balanced, and if you were to do something on one side of the equation, you must do the exact same thing in order to balance this action out. So when I'm multiplying both sides by 100, what essentially happens is that this gets rid of this gets rid of the denominator. So therefore, if I do that, I'm now left with I multiplied by 100 is equal to P times R times T. I want to solve for P, so I need to get rid of these two guys over here. Notice that R and T are being multiplied by P. So because they're being multiplied by P, in order to get rid of this, I'm going to do the opposite thing. So I'm going to now divide by R and T. So whatever I'm doing on one side of the equation, I must do the exact same on the other side. So if I divide by both sides, what happens is that these cancels each other out. Therefore, I'm now left with P is equal to I times 100 over R times T. So I've previously given you this formula, but I really haven't showed you how we can do that. You need to actually understand how we actually transposed it in order to answer one of the questions found on your post test. So this is how we actually do it. So how do we actually solve for the interest rate? Well, we're going to do the exact same thing. We're trying to solve for R, so let's get rid of the 100 first. If I do this exact same thing, the 100 gets rid of the denominator over here. So now I'm left with I is equal to 100 equals P times R times T. I want to solve for R, so what I want to do is I need to get rid of P and T. To get rid of P and T, because they're being multiplied, I need to divide, use the opposite symbol. So I need to divide both sides by P and T, and therefore I'm going to left with this formula over here. And now for our last example, in order to solve for time, we're going to be doing the exact same thing. So this is what you should get. Now what we did again was to cancel the denominators, and since we're trying to solve for T, I'm going to divide both of them by P and R. So if I do this, these will therefore cancel out, which is how I actually get this formula. That's a typo, that should be a T over here. All right, perfect. So again, please answer this question over here. Now in this post test, as I said, they're going to be using this formula over here instead, but it's pretty much the exact same thing. So go through each of these multiple choice questions and see which is the correct version. Now we're going to be looking at how we can actually apply the simple interest formula to solve some of our problems. So remember, this is the formula that I highly recommend that you use. So in this formula over here, we don't need to actually convert the interest rate at all, just leave it as a percentage form. And the common trick that the questions often ask you for this particular post test, as well as any questions on the exams, is that they often give you the time period, which is T, in days, weeks, or months as opposed to years. Now remember that your interest rate is always per annum per year. So because they're giving time in this case, other than years, they're giving it you in days, weeks, or months, you need to convert that into years instead. Let's now look at some examples of where the time period is not given in years. So the question wants us to calculate the simple interest earned for 14,250 for 2 years and 5 months at 3.2% per annum. So this is already given to me in years, but it has 5 months as well. So what I need to do is convert the 5 months into years. And in order to do that, what I do is I essentially just divide that by 12. So if I substitute everything to a formula, this is pretty much how I'd express it. Now, it's really important that you use the mixed fraction button again in order to do this, because if you don't do this, you're going to get the wrong answer. So substitute everything into the formula and you should get an answer of 1,102. Exact same thing over here. You've got this in 7 weeks. What I'm going to do now is, in order to convert our weeks into years, I know that there are 52 weeks in a year, so I'll divide that by 52. So put this into the calculator. I've got this as 7 over 52, and you're going to get an answer of $25.27. And for the last example, it's given to me in days. So what I need to do to convert this to years is I want to divide this by the amount of days in a year, which is 365. So therefore, it will be 20,390 multiplied by 0.75 multiplied by 21 on 365 divided by 100 will give me $8.80. So what I'd like you to do now is please answer these questions over here. These questions have time periods other than years. So this is really good practice. But also I've got some questions over here as well, which is slightly easier. But I'd like you to answer as many as you can. We're now going to be looking at the last component of today's lesson, which is about percentage profits and percentage losses. If you recall from my previous video, if you were trying to find out the percentage increase, loss, change, profits, loss, they all kind of use the same general formula. So all you need to do is just substitute what you're trying to find in the blank below. So for instance, if you're trying to calculate percentage profit, it's just simply the profit divided by the initial multiplied by 100. Similarly, to calculate percentage loss, it's going to be the loss divided by the initial amount multiplied by 100. Now, as you can see by these two formulas over here, you're always going to be dividing by the initial amount. And the common mistake that I often see that students make is that they often divide their profits or loss by either the smallest number or the largest number. This is incorrect because the initial amount could be either one of these cases over here. So it's really important that you identify what is the starting amount in that particular question. Now, to calculate what the profit or loss is, they just calculate in the exact same way. So profits and loss is just simply the final minus initial. But obviously, when you have a profit, your profit is going to give you a positive answer. So this is what I mean by positive. And when you have a loss, you're going to get a negative answer over here. So that's just the fundamental difference. So let's look at some examples of how we could actually calculate the percentage profit and percentage losses. So first question, calculate the percentage profit or percentage loss on the following sales. Now, it's actually really important that you identify whether this is a profit or whether this is a loss. So for the first part, original price is 50. So that's the initial amount over here. So that's the initial starting amount. Selling price is 75. So that's your final amount. Because your final amount is larger than your initial amount, this is an example of earning profit. So profit is therefore going to be final minus initial. This gives me a positive value, positive 25, and therefore to calculate the percentage profit, it's going to be 25 divided by 50, which is my initial amount over here, multiplied by 100, and therefore I'm going to get a percentage profit of 50%. Second example is sold for 15,000, original price is 36,000. So that's my starting price. Notice that your starting price is bigger than your final price. And because that's the case, this is an example of a loss. So therefore you've lost 21,000. Now, because you've got a negative here, you don't actually include the negative portion in your final answer at all. So when you're trying to substitute the loss into the formula, I'm just using the number. I'm not including the sign, as you can see. So it's 21,000 divided by my initial. My initial is 36,000, and I times that by 100, and you're gonna get an answer of 58.33%. For part C, sold for $37. Original price is $12.50. this is my initial amount, and because my final amount is larger, this is an example of a profit. So therefore, the profit that I've made is $24.50. Substitute this into the formula, and you're going to get an answer of 196%. Don't be too confused if your percentage exceeds 100%. This can happen sometimes, so that's perfectly normal. And for the last example, this example of here is slightly trickier than the other examples because they don't actually indicate what your starting price is. They actually give you the final price, or the sale price in this case. So they told you what the loss is. So the loss in this case is $250. They told you what your sale price, so meaning your final price. You need to find out what your initial price is in order for you to actually calculate the percentage loss. So your initial price is therefore going to be $480, which is what you paid, plus the $250 because that's the loss. So therefore the initial price is therefore going to be $730. Now that I've calculated the initial price, I then can use the formula. So 250 divided by 730 multiplied by 100. Therefore, this will give you a percentage loss of 34.25%. Hopefully, by understanding these examples over here, you're now able to answer these questions found on the Google Docs. So please have a go answering these questions, and then I'll show you the answers at the end of today's lesson. Okay class, this is the end of today's video. I wish you the best of luck when you're completing the post test. Remember that the post test is gonna be only for 30 to 40 minutes. However, I expect that most of you guys, or at least some of you guys, will finish within like 15-20 minutes because it is that manageable. So please answer all of these questions. If you can answer all of these questions, or if you refer to these questions on the day of your post test, I expect nothing less than 90% easily. Thank you guys for watching this video. I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye.